And as the Israelis run out of defensive interceptors, interceptors that can knock down these incoming ballistic missiles, the amount of damage that Iran can do to Israel will be very great. And you already see evidence that the Iranians are pounding Israel. And that pounding will get greater with the passage of time. So this is why it's so obvious that the Iranians have real options. The idea that we have escalation dominance and that, we can beat the Iranians as we go up the escalation ladder, I think is a fallacious argument. They have, in a way, an assured destruction capability. They can destroy the Gulf states, and that would have a profound effect on the world economy. And surely President Trump and his advisors have begun to realize that. And that's one of the reasons I think they're interested in looking for an off-ramp now. But then the question is, how do you find the off-ramp? And I don't think there is an off-ramp at this point. And I think what they'll do is they'll escalate. And they'll think that escalation will solve the problem. This gets back to my point about what Pete Hegseth is saying about today, Tuesday, being the day when we will inflict the most punishment on the Iranians that we have inflicted so far. Okay, we start walking up the escalation ladder, but then this brings me back to my point about what the Iranians can do if they go up the escalation ladder with us. And the point is, they could do massive damage to the Gulf states. So they have options here. And they can do massive damage to the international economy. So I think going up the escalation ladder is not going to produce a satisfactory outcome for us, for the United States and for Israel.
Yeah, given that they're so vulnerable with the desalination plants, it's a bit strange that the United States would have chosen to escalate by attacking the desalination plant within Iran, because now Iran can almost, can retaliate by the same means without being seen as the main aggressor, essentially having an alibi to do so. But how significant, though, is the attack on the suspension of the trade in energy? Because when people make the point, it's also linked into the entire international financial system with the petrodollar. But this seems to be one of the areas where the Trump administration is worried. Again, they make the point now that if Iran tries to block the Strait of Hormuz, then according to Trump's tweet, they will hit Iran 20 times harder. And now we hear Macron also say, well, we're going to come and help defensively somehow to open up the Strait of Hormuz. How do you see, how important is the energy aspect here, or what kind of dimensions are there to it?
Well, the energy dimension is of enormous importance. 20% of the world's oil and gas comes out of the Persian Gulf. It just matters enormously, and everybody understands that if this turns into a long war, it will have disastrous consequences for the world economy. Again, this is one of the principal reasons that President Trump is looking for an off-ramp. He likes to talk about opening the Straits of Hormuz. All I can say is good luck on that one. If that was easy, we would have done it earlier. I don't think we can open the Straits of Hormuz. You remember not too long ago, President Trump was talking about escorting tankers in the Persian Gulf. And the Navy basically told them that was not possible. Those naval ships, American naval ships, would be too vulnerable. So I don't think that they can open the Straits. The other thing you want to remember is if they actually destroy the petroleum infrastructure in the Gulf states, it doesn't matter whether the Straits of Hormuz is open or not, because there's going to be no oil coming out of the Straits of Hormuz. And if they destroy the desalination plants and the petroleum installations in the Gulf states, there are effectively not going to be any Gulf states left. I mean, the point is that the Iranians have options here. They can play hardball, and the consequences would be devastating for the Gulf states. And as I say, then it wouldn't matter whether the straits are open or not. But I don't think we're going to open the straits anyway. I don't think we're going to put naval ships in the Persian Gulf either. I think in a very important way, the Iranians are in the driver's seat. Clint, if I can just make a historical point that gets back to an issue that you were raising before, having to do with escalation dominance and air power, and even decapitation. If you go back to the period before World War I, as we all know, wars before World War I had no air dimension. Wars were fought between armies and navies. And it was in World War I where we first saw air forces employed by the fighting forces in Europe. Then after the war, this is in the 1920s and the 1930s, this is before World War II, you developed independent air forces. And those air forces became very interested in strategic bombing. And strategic bombing is another way of saying long-range bombing. And the idea was, and this was, of course, popular in the air forces of the world and among Air Force thinkers, that an air force by itself could independently win a war. In other words, you would no longer have to win that war on the ground or at sea. You could just take your air force and you could hit the other country's homeland. You could hit its economy, you could hit its population, you could hit its military forces, whatever. And you could bring that country to its knees with air power